whole experience of psychiatry has been that they never listen. You know, they never actually listen to your experience. They impose what they think's best, and there's no chance to talk about what you're actually feeling, or even your own feelings about why you've had a breakdown in the first place.
I was told by my psychotherapist that perhaps if I dressed more like he did, life would go a bit easier for me. But I think what he doesn't realize is that where I live, if I dressed like he did, I'd probably get mugged.
I've always had problems in my life, right? I'm a mother, I have my children. I haven't got a job, I'm poor. But despite all that, I don't think I should have been treated the way I have been treated.
Psychiatry is a branch of medicine. It is easy to assume that so-called illnesses of the mind, such as schizophrenia, can be diagnosed and treated by psychiatrists in much the same way as a local GP diagnoses and treats physical ailments. In fact, any three psychiatrists are just as likely to come up with three different diagnoses as one. Madness is in the mind of the beholder. Everything you say or do, even the way you dress, can be interpreted as a symptom of mental disorder. In the Middle Ages, the mad were cared for by their families, tolerated with amusement by village communities, or simply treated as outcasts. Each community had its healers. These midwives, herbalists, and visionaries were mainly women. Eventually, many of them were accused of witchcraft. With violence, men excluded women from medicine. In the 19th century, the numbers of asylums and private madhouses increased dramatically. Into them were dumped the awkward, the unwanted, the poor, and the potentially troublesome. This class-based system attracted the attention of medical practitioners. At that time, state-financed asylums were run by lay people. Indeed, doctors were barred on the grounds that they were likely to abuse the inmates. Motivated by financial gain, they opened their own private institutions for the rich and campaigned for control of state asylums, eventually succeeding. The asylums provided doctors with a good income and a fertile environment in which to experiment. Psychiatry was established. Many of those confined were women. Assertiveness and a refusal to conform to men's requirements were treated as an illness. Hysteria was the diagnosis. The cure was marriage or adherence to religious teachings. Today, those who are hospitalized or treated with tranquilizers are still mainly women, frequently from working-class backgrounds or ethnic minorities. Through the ages, a vast range of methods have been devised for treating the patient. Once it was mechanical restraints, which were used to subdue and keep order. Now it is psychoactive drugs. Once it was the straitjacket. Now it is the chemical cosh. Once it was bleeding, vomiting, and bath. Now it is electric shocks, which cause seizures and destroy irreplaceable brain tissue. The treatments have changed, but can we seriously call them improvements? We are promised a better service with preventative psychiatry. We are told that with the closure of the large institutions and a move to community care, conditions are bound to improve. But the reality is that many people are now confined in the home. If we are looking for a better service, why aren't we listening to the views and experiences of those on the receiving end, the patients?
If I'm angry, to the degree to which I am angry about my treatment, is not because I want to tear the system down. It's not because I want to seek vengeance. It's because I see thousands of people like me whose positive contribution to society is being rinsed down the drain.
I find making a personal statement very difficult, as I feel that psychiatry has invalidated my life. I feel that I've been made to feel that the things that things happened to me were my own fault, that it's because I was crazy or inadequate. So it's very hard to talk about it and feel positive.
I was once told, when I first went to Fulbourn some 11 years ago, I was told by a nurse, he said, the minute you walk in this door, you are invalid. He said, at any point in the rest of your life from now on, if you have to appear in a court of law and give evidence, your observations can be declared null and void simply because you have been a patient in a mental hospital. At the time, I didn't fully understand the implications of what he said, but he was absolutely correct. Because in everything I have attempted to do ever since, where my credibility has been at question, the fact that I've been in a psychiatric hospital has reduced me to the lowest of the low. I have no credibility in this society.
I think I put my first step on this treadmill when I went to see my GP, and he advised me to sell my business. Because then I had a business, some money, a son, and I was really, though I was depressed, I was all quite happy in my life. And I ended up at the end being churned out with no business, no money, no son, no job, and and quite a lot of my memory gone.
I wasn't sure about going to see the doctor, but I couldn't think what else to do. I just needed somebody to help me sort things out.
Sit down, please. Mrs. Graham?
No, Bell. Alice Bell.
Oh, yes. I've been given the wrong notes. Sorry. What's the problem?
Well, I've been feeling really bad recently. I can't seem to keep up with things at home like I used to. It's like...
Sorry, just hang on a minute, would you? Now, you said you'd been feeling bad. We haven't seen much of you lately, have we? How are the headaches? Did the mag relief sort the problem out for you?
Oh, it's not the migraine, it's... I just seem to feel so tired these days, and things mount up. I'm stuck indoors every day. My husband's on nights now, and we never see him. He tells me to pull myself together, but I just can't seem to. I think I need someone to talk to, but I never get out to meet anyone now. Not since we moved.
Yes. I see. How are you sleeping?
Well, not too well. If I could just get away, I feel so shut in. Sometimes I think if I could just get away for a day or two, things would be clearer.
Yes. Yes. What about meals? Are you eating properly?
No, not really.
I see.
Well, I eat the same as the children. It's easiest.
Perhaps, but not necessarily the best. Now, I think you need something to calm you down a little. These will help you relax, make you sleep better.
Really, it's the children. If I could just get out on my own for a change.
Couldn't your mother help you out?
It's not that easy. Not since we moved.
Okay, look. I'm going to try you on these. They should help. You should be able to sort things out now. Get back to normal. But if you have any problems, come right back and we'll see what we can do. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye, Mrs. Bell.
I took the Valium. They just made me feel more tired. A couple of months later, I locked myself in the bedroom. The doctor came. He told my husband it would be best for me to go into hospital.
I never felt at any time that I was really being listened to or that what I was saying was being taken seriously. I mean, doctors don't like being told their job. They think that they know best, and they don't. You know, I've had this on and off for 8 years, and they presume to diagnose me by asking me, you know, literally one or two questions, if that. I mean, I've been to GPs who haven't asked me any questions at all, you know, and I've just said, oh, depression, right, tranquilizers.
I just couldn't seem to cope with anything anymore, and I managed my job fairly well, but something felt wrong, so I went to see a doctor a GP, who referred me to a psychiatrist, who after only a short time diagnosed me a paranoid schizophrenic and admitted me to a clinic where they proceeded to pump me full of drugs.
During the 6 months after the baby was born, I felt reasonably well, and then I started to get very, very anxious again because I became very concerned about the sort of environment I was bringing children up into. And I got very concerned about pollution and just what sort of world my children had been born into, and it got me very anxious. So eventually, I was referred to a psychiatrist who put me on a very heavy dose of tranquilizers. He didn't tell me they were tranquilizers, but he put me on this very heavy dose and sent me home again and told me to stop watching BBC Two, and then I wouldn't get so worried.
I went in to see the doctor in the hospital, and he had a chat with me, and he says, oh, well, I think you'd better come in for tonight, just for a rest. And I says, oh, I'd better pop back and get a couple of things. He says, oh, no, there's no need, we have everything here, just come in for a rest tonight. I didn't leave that hospital till 7 months later.
The doctor said I'd only been for a few days, that just being here would help. But I couldn't see how.
Get me a 730 form, will you, Jackie? Sit down. Now, your husband's given us most of the details we need to know, but just one or two more things I want to ask you. I forgot to ask if you have a phone at home. Do you have a telephone?
737-7738.
Is that 7738?
Yes, 737-7738.
Right, now.
Well, will I see a doctor soon?
No, dear, the yellow forms. Third drawer. Behind the 136 forms. That's it. Right, now. It's next of kin. Is that your husband? Is your husband the next of kin?
Is it blood? I mean, is it blood kin? There's my mother, you see.
Oh, I'll put your husband. It's just a formality. Now it's religion. C of E. Alice. Should I put C of E then?
No, no, I haven't been baptized.
Oh, I'll leave it.
It's Carolyn Barry. I don't think my husband can cope. He's not very good with the children, you know.
Don't worry about it. I'll see to it. Oh, just a minute. Hello? No, I can't, Peter. No, tell her she's got to take it. No, tell her. What? Really? Yeah. God, that bloody woman thinks this place is a hotel. What? No, now Nigel knows his appointment's been cancelled. He's just playing games with you. Yeah. Okay. 24. Well, with the new admission, 25. Right, bye. Now, where were we? Oh, yes. Did you bring your clothes with you?
We've got our overnight case here.
Oh, good, that's fine. Now, we like all our patients to take a bath and to change into their night clothes. It's more comfortable for them. Just for today.
But it's lunchtime.
I know. Jackie will go through with you when you've done. No, leave your case, dear. We have to have a property check later, just for safety.
Come on, Alice. I'll come to the bathrooms with you. Okay?
But I don't need a bath.
Come on, Alice. You'll be all right.
I felt very powerless about having my clothes and possessions taken away. I felt as though I had no control at all over what was happening to me. They were taking away everything that belonged to me, and they were doing things to my body which I didn't want done.
You're being asked, what's your name, what's your number, what's your religion, take this off, put this on, go and have a bath, come back. Do you think that a watch is more valuable than a pencil, sign at the bottom dotted line? I mean, it's just really absurd.
And I get my clothes taken off me. And then I asked him, I says, when will I be getting my clothes back? Because I was on about in these pyjamas and a dressing gown that was about 5 times too big for me. And I seen the psychiatrist and I says, what's the point taking my clothes away? And he says it was a normal procedure. So he says that maybe about a week or something. He says it all depends how you go in this group therapy. So what happened was, the procedure was then that you went into this group and you had to speak. You know, you have to ask a group of adults if you can get your clothes back.
When you actually went into hospital, what did you need?
A bit of reassurance, you know? Maybe I needed that for my family, but they weren't in a position to give it to me. For my mother and father, of course, they were also ill. But I needed a bit of reassurance from anybody, you know? Somebody to talk to. That's all.
And what did you get?
I got medicine. injections until I was numb and out of my senses completely.
I went into the day room. I felt so stupid wearing my night clothes in the middle of the day.
There, that looks much better. I'll give you some tablets in a moment. You look much fresher now.
Alice, come and sit down here, dear. Right. Now, over here is Mahesh, and next to him, Hazel. Here on your left is Myrtle, and over here, this is Jane. Jane will look after you. Won't you, Jane?
What?
Hello. Just come in. You had your lunch?
Medication, everybody.
Doctor, Chemedrin, providing, that's me. What are you?
All right, Peter, you're first. Largactil 250, Poseidon, and Chemedrin. That's it.
Very well.
All right, good. And Jane. Poseidon. Yes, that's it.
Jane, take your tablet, please.
They make me tired. That's why I can't do OT.
Oh, come on, take them now. You've been so much better.
No.
Jane, now you know you've got to take them like this. If you don't, we'll have to give them to you by injection. And you don't want that again. Mahesh? You ought to get off the ward more, Jane. You know that. Look at Mahesh. He benefits from OT, don't you, Mahesh?
Yes, mon capitaine.
Mahesh. See you take them, Mahesh.
You've gone in, they say, for a rest. You don't get no rest. So all hurry up and do this. Sit down to meals. Go to bed at a certain time. If you're asleep, they wake you up and give you your sleeping pills.
Whenever people are sort of sitting reading papers quite happily, someone will emerge from the staff office and inveigle everybody into playing Scrabble. It seems to be assumed that if people are playing Scrabble, somehow, you know, there can't be too much wrong, even although most of the time the staff are actually placing the bits and the people who are playing, supposedly playing and getting up and having cups of tea and going away again. I mean, I think Scrabble is one of the major, the focal points of communal life in a psychiatric ward, and I think that I can claim to have been a participant in the longest game of Scrabble ever in NHS history, when somebody actually started the game, was discharged, readmitted, and came back to the table in time to win the game.
Some of the nurses were pleasant enough, and some weren't, but I think all of them tended to sort of be very patronising and treat us like children. What I really needed to do at that stage, I really needed to talk, because I was just so confused what had happened to me, what was going on. And there just wasn't the opportunity for that.
They expect us not to talk to each other, just take the drugs, just smile. I remember they used to say to me, oh, smile and you'll get out. And I didn't bloody well feel like smiling. I felt in a lot of pain.
You get very good staff, but you can also get staff that think it's funny to torment you. They find out what will upset you. And when you object, perhaps you swear or you smash something, that's it, you're on punishment. If you're lucky, it's just your clothes taken away or a meal lost. But they could send for the envy mob and you're thrown across that bed. And I mean men. They jump you and throw you across and you get a needle there. And when your husband comes that night, you're asleep. Oh, she's shown off. She's been in a mood. My word don't count.
I remember feeling extremely frustrated at one point, but by being locked up, as if I was in prison, I was being punished for being depressed. And I actually got out of the hospital one day. I thought that was the sanest thing I could do. And I was brought back forcibly. I think it was by the police. I don't remember. But I do remember fighting like hell. I don't want to go back to this place. I'm okay. But they didn't think I was okay. So I was injected because I was fighting for my life, I felt, and slung into a side ward, which was padded, a padded cell, a mattress on the floor. And obviously the drug just knocked me out.
I was admitted as a voluntary patient to a psychiatric hospital. During the first few weeks that I was there, I really didn't do anything at all. I just sat around and thought about how awful it was and how hopeless everything was. And I felt a lot worse. So I went to the nurses and told them I wanted to leave. And they told me that I couldn't, that I'd be sectioned if I did. So I ran away. I was brought back by the police, and they put me on a 72-hour section. After that, I'd said that I promised that I'd stay. I wouldn't run away anymore, so they let the section lapse. And then I did. I ran away quite a few times. And they put me in another 72-hour section, which they extended to a 28-day section. At the end of that, they said to me, you know, are you willing to stay now? And I said no. So they put me on a year's section.
When you're sectioned, you feel like a prisoner. You feel you're being punished. You feel you're being hemmed in. My reaction to that was wanting to get out. It has the complete opposite effect that it should have. It's not a feeling of security. It's their security, not my own security. I hated it. But I went along with it because I had no choice. But most of the time it made me very, very angry inside. I wouldn't mind it if the section and the caring, etc., went along, but it didn't. You know, there was nothing in the section that was caring. It was containing me.
There was a couple of times when I decided that I couldn't stay in hospital any longer. There wasn't any point. And I was supposed to be there on a voluntary basis, so I went and said that I had decided to sign myself out, wanted to go. And I was then told by the consultant that if I did that, they'd section me. And it was up to me. But he also said that the thing about sectioning was that, you know, it wasn't a good thing to have in your CV.
At present, I am on a Section 3 of the Mental Health Act 1983, which is a 6-month section. I've appealed against it to the Mental Health Review Tribunal on the actual day it started. It's now gone into its 3rd month, and they have yet to review my case. So it means that the whole system is in some kind of secret agreement to keep people on sections once they've been put on by doctors. This leaves people wide open to being manipulated and oppressed by psychiatric means. I mean, they talk about Russia, They say, oh, isn't it terrible in the mental hospitals of Russia that people can be dragged off and given drugs against their will? It's happening right here in England. No.
They said the consultant would sort things out for me. I waited 3 days to see him.
Sit down, Mrs. Bell. I'm Dr. Davis. I'll be dealing with your case. Now, I may not be able to see you every time, in which case Dr. Gupta, my registrar, will be seeing you. I believe you were seen by the duty doctor when you first came in, Dr. Capstick. You have met Dr. Capstick, Mrs. Bell? He saw you when you first came in?
Oh, yes, the young doctor. He spoke to me, yes. He didn't say very much.
That's right. Well, how are you feeling now, since coming in?
I don't know, really. I guess I'm just worried about being away from home.
You do seem a bit tense. Let's see. Have you slept any better since coming in?
Not really. They brought someone in yesterday. She was crying all night. I wasn't able to sleep much at home, but in here it's worse.
Yes, it is sometimes difficult to sleep in a dormitory at first. Now, Dr. Capstick says that you feel things have been building up to this for the last 3 or 4 months. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I've found it difficult at home for some time now.
So it's the family, really? Nothing else?
Well, the family's not everything.
No, of course not. Now, Alice, do you remember locking yourself in the bedroom?
Yes.
Dr. Capstick says that you locked yourself in the bedroom and wouldn't come out.
I couldn't stand any more. I just needed time to myself.
You didn't want to harm yourself?
No, I just wanted to get away from things.
Yes, I see. Has there been any history of mental illness in your family, Mrs. Bell, as far as you know?
No, not as far as I know. My husband always said one of my uncles was a bit strange.
Really? In what way?
Oh, I don't know. He was just a bit shy, I guess, but he seemed okay to me.
Fine. Have you ever felt so down in the dumps before?
Not as bad as this.
Yes, I see. But you have felt something like this?
No, not really. I think I'm just worried about the way we live.
Yes. Well, you certainly do seem a bit wound up at the moment. I think I'll just adjust your medication a little, take the edge off your anxiety, and then I'll get Dr. Gupta to come in and chat with you tomorrow, get a few more details, sort things out for you. Right. Now, just don't worry.
Thanks. Goodbye. I needed to tell somebody why I felt so depressed, but he just didn't seem to have time to listen.
I realised very quickly once I went into hospital that really there wasn't a lot of point in me talking to a psychiatrist or a psychologist about what I felt was wrong, what my problems were, because of their attitude. I mean, I started off by trying to explain that I was upset about what was happening in the world, and that's what was depressing me. And their answer to that was that really I should be making more of an effort with my appearance. And then I had a lot of stuff about losing weight, wearing makeup, doing something with my hair.
I discovered about that time that my mother was being very, very violently abused by my father. And that, along with other stresses, made me feel really bad. So I went to the consultant and told him just what was happening. I tried to tell him in a very sort of cool way without laying any blame on anybody, just so he would be put in the picture about what was happening. I found this very difficult to do, and he kept firing questions at me, which didn't seem to be appropriate to what I was trying to tell him. And then when I'd finished telling him what I had to say, he said, well, all I can say is if I was married to your mother, I'd knock her about too. And I felt very, very angry, extremely angry, because I felt that he had not only said what he thought about my own mother, but he said what he thought about how women in general should be treated. And he was in a very powerful position to make that remark.
I felt a total lack of communication with them about my problem or my feelings. I very rarely got the opportunity to really talk about how I was feeling and the root causes of those feelings. I just felt as if I had a quick 10 minutes with a consultant when he came on the ward. I remember waiting hours to see consultants, being very uptight about it, and it was all over before I had a chance to say anything. Till the next time, till next week, an almost dismissive attitude.
So eventually I got to see what I keep on thinking of as the drugs man. And he gave me an interview with his registrar, and the registrar asked yet another set of totally inappropriate questions, which didn't even bring into light that I had lost my mother and that I came from a situation of great distress at that time. It was related to, are you happily married? How's your sex life? Have you ever been arrested? How do you get on with your neighbours? Do you like your dog? So I said to him that I was under a lot of stress, and I thought this was to do with my mother and her death 5 months before and coming to terms with her life. And he said, well, I don't know why you're so worried. She's dead now. You've got nothing else to worry about. He said, all I can say to you is if your husband was unemployed, I'd say you have something to worry about. But your mum's dead now, so stop bothering. He said, but I will tell you what is the matter with you. He said, you've got a chemical imbalance of the brain, which you're going to have to learn to live with and accept. And all I can say to you is take the tranquilizers and live with your chemical imbalance.
Several things happened in the hospital that made me feel that they were going to try and treat my lesbianism as an illness. I mean, that was one of the things that they put forward as a diagnosis. I was either schizophrenic, manic depressive, or homosexual. When I was admitted to the hospital, I was very close to a woman then, who meant an awful lot to me, and she came up to see me the first couple of nights I was in hospital. Said she'd be up the next night. She never came. I never saw her again. Didn't hear from her. And I couldn't understand what had happened. It took me about 3 years to pluck up the courage eventually after I got out of hospital to actually give her a ring and see how she was getting on. And she told me that the second night after she'd been up to visit me, they took her into the office and told her that she couldn't come to see me anymore and she wasn't to get in touch. And I mean, I just can't understand how that's, you know, what they were doing there.
For the first 2 years of me going into psychiatry, I was deemed to be a schizophrenic. But in the last 9 years, I've been deemed to be a manic depressive, which says a lot for the hospital's ability to give you whatever title they choose to and treat you accordingly. Because psychiatry is just about drugs. It's not about anything else. It's about suppressing people with drugs and controlling people's behavior with drugs.
They would always want to say to me that I was suffering from postnatal depression, and they would they would recommend tranquilizers, and I always sort of seemed to say, well, no, I don't need them, I don't believe in them. But being in this hospital, I was forced to take them. I had no choice, I had to take them.
The treatments I've had are drug treatments, which just numbed me so I couldn't think about how I was feeling. Couldn't get in touch with my feelings at all, just going around like a zombie.
Well, I think they make you addicts. I mean, I think it's just like something new comes out, let's see what happens. You'll find so many people in hospital are taking a pill and then taking another pill for the side effect. You shake, rattle and roll.
Your tongue grows in your mouth, your body twists, and many patients are viewed by their families when they come to hospital with these terrible side effects, and it's interpreted as being a facet of their mental condition, and will always be so because nobody ever explains.
It is not right to give people drugs and to deny them the information about the effects, positive and negative, of those drugs. I resent very much the fact that I have not been given full information when I've asked for it. Not only that I've not been given full information, but that I've actually been given disinformation.
You started off by knitting a coat hanger cover, and if you did that okay, you got to knit one in 2 or maybe even 3 colours. And from that you progressed to making a stool, that sort of thing. Making an Easter bonnet for the Easter bonnet parade. After that, if you were sort of getting on okay, they had what they called an industrial unit, where most of the long-term patients worked, doing a 9-to-5 job Monday to Friday for £2.50 a week.
I spent 4 hours a day packing cotton wool into plastic bags. They called it industrial therapy. I'm Alice Bell, Birchward. I've come for industrial therapy.
Oh, fine then, Alice. I'll be with you in a minute.
We're sheep shearing, Alice.
Well, go and sit in that chair, won't you? Right. I'll explain what we're doing here. It's cotton balls, as you see, picking and packing. Okay, it's not difficult, but some people do find it a bit tricky, so we'll take it slowly. Hazel's been here some time now. She knows. Hey, Hazel.
It's not very difficult. No, it's not difficult at all.
You take a bundle of cotton wool here, you see, and put it into the bags like this. Now, you must ensure that each bag is fairly tightly packed. You'll find that 27 balls fill the bag. Then place the bags on your left with the open end facing towards you. There we are. So that... no, I'm sorry. To my left hand, your right hand. And then Peter takes the bags and packs them into large boxes. Oh, but before that, Mahesh will come and collect them from you. And that's how it works. Okay, then, Alice?
I don't strain myself at $3.35 a week.
Oh, you can have an overall if you wish. We like to keep the place tidy looking. We'll be having a tea break in 20 minutes.
Occupational therapy was a very strange phenomenon. I had a mixture of country dancing, which was an option, which was loosely called occupational therapy, or alternatively working in a place called the Farm Factory, which did tend to live up to its name. My first 3 months in the Farm Factory, after I wore myself down with the country dancing, involved folding pieces of paper, quite a lot of which were returned to me because I hadn't folded them the right way round. Several times we lost patients in the sense that we would just get the whole lot of cardboard and throw it at someone because it's really frustrating. On haloperidol, for instance, it wasn't possible to see much further than 12 inches in front of one's eyes. So to fold bits of paper blindly is a very difficult thing. This also had its problems with the country dancing, and many a time I unfortunately tripped my partner over inadvertently, and sometimes we both tripped each other over. But we learnt how to fall.
My psychiatrist told me I'd have to have ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, which I didn't want. I just dreaded the idea of it. I mean, I didn't know a lot about it, but I just felt like it was they were going to be doing something to my brain under anaesthetic, and it was really frightening, the thought of it. And I gathered from other patients that they didn't like it either. But I was told that if I didn't have it, that there was nothing else they could do for me. They would just send me home. This was the treatment.
The consultant told me I needed ECT to lift my depression. I didn't want to sign the consent form, but they talked me into it.
Oh, Alice, come in, please. Okay. Now just slip onto the bed. It's all right. There's nothing to be frightened of. It's fine. Now just lie right down. Relax. The doctor won't be a moment. This is Alice Bell.
Hello, Alice.
She's been very good.
Have you had an anaesthetic before, Alice?
Yes.
Good. Well, it's just the same. You won't feel anything at all. You'll have a little sleep, and when you wake up, it'll all be over. Very easy these days.
Yes, they said.
Right. Now, I'm just going to do a couple of checks. I'm just going to listen to your heart. Fine. Good. Good. Now, Alice, are you wearing any hairpins or chains, anything like that?
No, no.
Lovely. Okay. She seems a bit anxious. Did they give her any PRN Valium on the ward?
Well, yes.
Fine. Okay.
I'm not too sure about this.
Alice, Dr. Davis knows which treatment is most appropriate for your condition. It's nothing to worry about. It's perfectly safe. We do this hundreds of times a week. Now you'll just feel a little prick.
Okay. Alice. It's all over. Are you okay, Alice?
Yes, you're all right. Expect you're feeling a bit woozy.
Put your slippers on and we'll go back to the ward. I kept some breakfast for you.
I've had breakfast. I've got a terrible headache.
Was I here before? Yes, you were. Don't worry about the head.
It's probably just the anaesthetic. It does make you feel a bit odd. You'll be all right when it wears off.
Feels so strange.
Where are my slippers?
Here they are. Right by the side of the bed.
Come on, Alice. We'll go back to the ward.
And afterwards, when you came out of it, you felt awful. Your head just thumped, your face ached. And I think the most frightening thing really was that you couldn't remember at that point. I mean, people that you were friendly with, other patients, nurses, they would look familiar, but you weren't sure if you knew them or not. You couldn't remember. You couldn't remember where your bed was, and sometimes you couldn't. I sometimes felt I didn't really know who I was, where I was, what I was doing there.
Every member of my family, the psychiatrist, the charge nurse, and all the nursing staff just kept coming to me all day long and telling me, look, why don't you have ECT? And go and talk to that chap over there, he had it yesterday. You see how quickly he's getting better. Well, I went and talked to him and he couldn't remember having the ECT.
I had a course of 6 ECTs, which each one just left me really confused and disorientated. I think the whole period that I was having them, I just didn't really know where I was or what was going on very much, and just lost all confidence in myself. And I think, you know, looking back, that's what they were aiming to do with them, because to start with, you know, I was a bit rebellious, a bit difficult, but under ECT I became much more sort of docile, much more easy for them to cope with.
I think psychiatry disempowers people. You're taken away from all your life, everything that you know and understand, and you're put into a situation where other people are giving you your meals and are doing everything for you, telling you what time you can go to bed, what time you have to take your tablets. You have no responsibility for your life.
I was beginning to get too used to the hospital routine. I felt I was ready to go home. Eventually, so did they.
Well, Mrs. Bell, I think we should be thinking of sending you home, don't you? Now, we know you may not feel quite ready yet, but you've really come on a great deal since you've been here. You know, Mrs. Bell, nowadays we don't believe in keeping people in hospital any longer than is absolutely necessary. Often it just doesn't help. We don't want people getting bogged down in here. It's not like the old days. With the kind of treatments we have now, we're able to take care of people in the community, in their own homes. It's better all round. It seems you have settled down a bit. Medication is working quite nicely now. I think it's helped you to get things under control. Good. And the shock treatment has pulled you up a bit. Good. And I understand from the social worker that she's sorted things out for you at home. So, we should be thinking in terms of getting you back to your family, your husband. Getting you back to normal. Now, you want to be back home with your children, don't you, Mrs. Bell?
Yes, I guess so.
That's right. And don't worry. We won't be leaving you on your own. There'll be your outpatient appointments, of course. And if you've got any problems, pop along to see your GP, Dr. Kyle. I'll be dropping him a line. And, of course, Mrs. Blythe, the social worker, will be looking in on you from time to time to see that you're all right. You'll find there's a whole support system outside these days. Just because we've had to bring you in this time doesn't mean to say we should ever have to again. Quite the contrary. You know, I sometimes think we psychiatrists will be doing ourselves out of a job. Oh, well. I hope we won't have to see each other again, Mrs. Bell. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye. That afternoon, my husband came to take me home. He said that now we could get back to normal.
A lot of us used to yo-yo in and out of the hospital because we didn't manage to get jobs or we couldn't lie effectively enough to stay out. There was no aftercare whatsoever apart from the outpatients appointments, which were always quite frightening because one felt this is an ultimatum. If you have a job, you're okay. If not, we're back in again.
I'm not able to get a job. I'm not fit enough to work, you know, which means my labor is used as cheap labor because of the stigma they put on me about the schizophrenic bit, you know. And I feel terrible, you know. I feel half the man I used to be, not even half, you know, just about half, you know. I feel so wrecked, like a shipwreck.
as a working class woman, it's very hard to feel positive about your life, and that's what I needed, was to find something positive to identify with, to feel that, to get rid of the conditioning that I'd been brought up with, that my only hope for the future was to find a good man and get married, and that I really had no value in myself. And that's, I think what psychiatry did was just to reinforce the messages that I've been brought up with, instead of helping me to make changes.
I've not only had to combat society's view of people who are mentally ill or distressed, I've had to combat the men's view of women and where they think women have to fit into the world, and I've had to actually be stronger whilst feeling bad to even cope with that. I've had to find extra strength to even cope with the men I've met in this last year.